And just to give you a little bit of background, because I know she will share most of her story with you, she is a Syrian Armenian-American psychologist. She is herself a survivor of the Syrian conflict and her family. She's an academic, also an author and a poet. And we want you also to know that on the back table are so many abundant opportunities to get in touch with what she's doing and her work in the world, her work with the United Nations, and her work in all of our hearts and her own heart to keep and stay in this purity of love that we are all. Just, what is the word? We are so honored to receive this gift of love. She's devoted her life to studying the impact of trauma and helping others heal so they can reach a state of wholeness and peace. She will share her work and her process with us this morning. She will be back to do a workshop with us at another time. Today we're going to get the precursor and the beauty that she is just in her own beautiful, heartfelt way. So I invite you to welcome Dr. Ani.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm so honored to be with you today and so grateful. And the theme today and the love is just, I feel it, and I feel like it's lifting me up like a parachute, and someone has to hold me down. So I'm using my bell to ground myself and keep me grounded and in peace. I'd like to start with a short love meditation, which is kind of active, where you would be moving your arms. So I'll first ring the bell for us to be mindful of this wonderful gift that we have together. And then when you inhale, starting from the heart, inhale, opening the heart, we say, I am love. And then we put our thumb and index finger together and we come together. Love is all around me. And then we move our hands down from our shoulders to our elbows. So inhale, I am love. Love is all around me. I am love. Love is all around me. I am love. Love is all around me. And one last time. I am love. Love is all around me. Thank you so much. As sardonic Chinese saying states, may you live in interesting times. And indeed, aren't we living in a very interesting times, ladies and gentlemen? And may you live interesting times indeed is giving a positive message, taking the best of what God and universe, Mother Earth, galaxies has presented to us. It has been a challenge for me starting from childhood, and part of life is suffering, going through different traumas. And a lot of the question is why a psychologist really goes into the field is usually to heal themselves and their communities. And it was very apparent for me to be born in Syria because my father was genocide survivor from Ottoman Turkish genocide. And I have had a lot of traumatic individual experiences of the war with Israel, then collective traumas of the starvation, and then the generational trauma of inheriting the genocidal generational trauma from my father. It was pretty much a lot of suffering. And I thought to myself, oh my God, my dissertation has to be on meaning in suffering. But mind you, I had just been here like 8 years or 10 years when I was embarking in this. So I wrote a really passionate proposal about meaning in suffering. And I was called by Columbia University's doctoral dissertation chair and reprimanded that how did I not reference Viktor Frankl, that this is his theory. And I was dumbfounded. I was so embarrassed. I was humiliated. And I'm like, no one told me to read this book. I had no idea about this book. And I thought I was inventing something. You know how thoughts and ideas are just circulated. They're not really, they don't belong to anyone particular. So that was the journey where it helped me to find Viktor Frankl, not only his books, but actually take a course with him and really sit down and have a heart-to-heart talk. And when the Syrian war started, I wrote a poem, and I know Reverend Catherine loves poems, so I'm going to share my journey through the poem that I wrote. I'm a Syrian refugee. I'm an Armenian Syrian immigrated in the mid-1970s. My first week in our American high school in Fort Lee, I was called a dirty immigrant. When I asked what I was, I responded Armenian. They asked in a very demeaning way, what's that? I said, well, Armenia was partially a republic of Soviet Union, but it's independent since 92. The other larger part is occupied by Turkey due to the genocide. They pushed me away and they said, oh, then you're a communist, stay away. But I told them I was not even born in Armenia, I was born in Syria. And as my father and his family were forced out of their homes in Anatolia after killing 1.5 million. They forced all the Armenians out of there to the Arabian March in the Arabian desert. I'm a Syrian refugee. And they ask, where is Syria? Yeah, oh, you must be a terrorist then. Do you have refrigerators? How about television? Do you ride camels and donkeys? And continued with their sly remarks, putting down who I was and where I was from. It has been 8 years since the war in Syria, and it's not only due to dictator president, it's because larger countries all around Syria has made Syria a battleground to sell their arms and ammunitions, weaken Syria, which was the only strong Arab country in the Middle East. In 2016, when they were negotiating Syrian refugees coming to America, there was a congressman advising to allow only Christians and not Syrians to America. And I was shocked and dismayed, wondering, don't you know that Syrians could be all religions? And what does religion got to do with terrorism anyway? Why is that I don't feel lucky and happy about being born Christian? Because perhaps it was a century ago, Armenians were beheaded because they were Christians. If they did not convert from Christianity to Islam by Ottoman Turks. Shall we exclude all Christians as terrorists in Columbus, Ohio were Christians? Shall we exclude all Jews as those oppressing Palestinians in Israel are Jewish? Shall we exclude all Buddhists as the terrorists in Myanmar are Buddhists? And where do we stop? And where do we draw the line of sanity and stop this? I'm a Syrian refugee, and I'm grateful for the human rights that we enjoy here in USA. I was tired of being squeezed between two brothers, stripped of all my human rights as a girl first, and then as a woman, subject to the gender stereotyping and discrimination. But here, I'm grateful of all the opportunities I enjoy in USA. Imagine my parents didn't even let me ride a bicycle in Syria. Here, I ride a motorcycle. We were traumatized of wars all around us and in the Middle East as well. Here we are in like a pseudo bubble. We contribute to conflicts all around the world, and then we sit pretty, mighty, kind of pseudo safe and big, while we wonder, why are certain people targeting us? I'm grateful of all the opportunities I enjoy here in USA. Well, they should be practiced everywhere around the world, as the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, gender, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. I'm an Armenian Syrian refugee, now an American citizen. I'm filled with sadness and disappointment as we are subjecting thousands of humans to unnecessary trauma. Just today, I got the number of refugees, 42 billion. Instead of embracing Syrians with empathy and compassion, we are becoming border judges, examining their fate, yet no one is asking what has happened to our fate. And how about the golden rule? Do unto others what you wish to be done to you. But I also have much hope of empathy as I meet strangers even who will come to me and express words of empathy because of my fallen relatives, again, falling as we speak in Syria and in Armenia. Compassion, and they give their condolences, which fills my heart with peace and instilling a deep sense of togetherness, hope, and ever-present compassion, the courage to endure, the passion to take one day at a time, doing the best that I can, and the wisdom to be truly, truly mindful and present. So that's the journey that took me to where I met Viktor Frankl. And at that time, I was, can I have one of the chairs, David? I was really experiencing a lot of physical, digestive, and other issues. So what I do usually ask people is that I mentioned 4 kinds of traumas. It's the individual trauma, that which you experience. Generational trauma that you can't see, but it's just like diabetes we inherited. And then we say, why is that my belly hurting? I didn't eat anything that doesn't agree with me. Or maybe you're carrying on your back and say, why is my back hurting? I don't remember carrying anything heavy. So each trauma gives us a different challenges, our physical body as well as emotional. So the first thing that I learned is to drop those down and then express what I'm feeling around those experiences that I went through. And that release is what Harry Stack Solomon talks about, release as getting into closure. The release is what Freud says is catharsis. You get it off your chest because we don't have USBs internally or external drives to put them in compartments and say, let's go on. I'm going to put this generational trauma in this USB and leave it over here. We don't have those. So we have to put it down, or else our body is going to be very challenged to continue the journey with all these. And I can mention in the workshop, just quickly, from the brain, hormones, heart, digestive system, muscular, skin, everything is impacted by these traumas. So we put it down, we express it, we talk about it, and then what Harry Stack Sullivan emphasized, the importance of empathy and validation. So if someone says, what genocide? Like the whole world was denying genocide happened. And in fact, Biden just admitted it. USA even 100 years was denying the genocide, and they just accepted it. And from 200 countries, only 32 countries accepted. So we put it down, and then we use it as stepping stone. We come up with each trauma, we are propelled like a parachute up. And now I am seeing things, chandeliers from the other side that I was unable to see before, trees from these windows here that I was unable to see, because when I am a victim, I'm always looking down and all I see is dirt and discomfort and more suffering. And then unconsciously, as a magnet, I pull those to my life. And have you heard people say, oh, it comes in 3s or 7s, bad luck? It's not, it's our understanding of that. So with each, you will propel yourself to higher knowledge, higher experience, higher grounding, higher connection with the universe. And when that's what really I got out of, even though Viktor Frankl didn't talk about intervention, but in fact, he did talk about, for me, thank you, to be able to help the Armenian community to forgive, because we were doing the research, long-term impact. 70 years had passed since 1915 Ottoman Turkish genocide. So we tried to find out, how did these people survive? What were their strengths? What were their challenges? And I found a lot of anger from sadness, depression that hasn't been released. So, and why are not they releasing for 70 years? Because they want to hold on, prove to the world it happened, because everybody keeps denying it. So they wouldn't even want to move. We were doing workshops, healing workshops. They were like, we have to make sure first, you have to go and talk with the Turks and get them to admit that it happened. And I'm like, you can't expect your so-called the person who denied it for 100 years, they're not going to come one day and be filled with consciousness and say, we're sorry that we denied for a year, and yes, it happened. We have to find a way for collective validation, like these groups here, where we can come and validate and not wait for political action, because that being at the UN, it's a little grim to expect that, because even at the UN, we have been every year harassed by the Turkish Council. Every time we have a program on preventing genocide, they come and disturb, throw chairs. I'm talking at the UN. Throw chairs, bang doors, stand up and talk while the chair is talking, and write curse words on the program, Turkish curse words. So in spite of all these political challenges, we have to continue by focusing on the healing, because ultimately, once the healing happens, as Viktor Frankl says, you can't jump into forgiveness before you have a chance to heal. And he, with his Viennese accent, heavy Viennese accent, he said, you have to help them forgive. And I was kind of shocked. I said, Dr. Frankl, how do you forgive when everybody denies and nobody says anything happened? And he goes, how long do you plan to wait? It was like kind of, duh, lights, camera, wake up. I was like, yes, you're absolutely right. Why is everybody waiting for that? You have a question? Oh, sorry. I thought that someone had the hand up. So that, in fact, was my shift. Internally, my GI and other muscle issues, as well as approaching my community. Of course, my community rejected that vehemently, the F word, and they said, you cannot talk about forgiveness. You have to go and talk to the Turks. And it be like, I was like a poem between the Turks and Armenians would say, I'm a traitor, I'm giving the wrong diagnosis. And I have paper clips proving that. And the Turks, of course, completely in denial. They're like, this woman is crazy. She's saying things that never happened. It was a war. There was no genocide. So I was for 10 years back and forth. In the meantime, psychology itself, the science was reprimanding. I almost was thrown out of Fordham University because, oh, she's using the F word, forgiveness. That's not scientific. That should be in the churches and other spiritual centers. That's not been scientifically studied. That was 23 years ago when we first started with this movement. And then now, if you search now, you will see hundreds, if not thousands of research showing how meaning making and forgiveness are instrumental. It's like your life GPS is going to show you the proper healthy direction and path to take in life. And that's what we've been working on, because everything can be taken away in a 30-second, like in Morocco, the earthquake happened, or any other conflicts that we have been serving in 50 countries voluntarily in the past 35 years and 26 states in America. And I've seen in 30 seconds, 45 seconds, the whole house could be palace-like with chandeliers, crystals, all gone in less than 40 seconds. But if it's something meaningful that is in you, that's something that cannot be stripped away from you as long as you are alive. So that's what Viktor Frankl taught me, and that's why at Meaningful World, we carry on the importance of helping people find meaning. And it's not even, I don't know if you know, Viktor Frankl separated from Freud and Adler because he didn't like Freud focusing on only the mother and sexual conflicts and etc. And he was really, really deeply, even if he, as a survivor of Auschwitz and losing his wife, his whole family, he didn't come out with anger, revenge, and extreme negative emotions. He was filled with love, and he would crack jokes every 2 minutes. He would, we're in a class and he's drawing caricature like Adler with a cigar and Freud with a pipe, and then he draws himself. He says, no pipe, no cigars, just meaning. And other jokes. And he, when I met him, he was 93, and he was almost blind. He was looking at his notes at this distance from his eyes. He had another wife that was younger, and she was helping him. And he had just, in spite of that, he had just returned from a rock climbing, mountain climbing trip, and came to teach. So extremely, extremely active. And those are some of the characteristics I think I value, and I recommend that you kind of be mindful to integrate laughter into your schedule, because as they say, children laugh at least 25 times a day, but humans, adults, it seems according to surveys, they laugh maybe once or twice hardly a day. So that's another way that we can bring peace within through bringing laughter. And we have rituals for morning and night. When you go on our website, you would see humor is 10-minute humor. If you can't laugh by yourself, then to watch like a dry bar comedy where there's no curses and language is clear, and to make you laugh. Those are important ways to bring sense of meaning and sense of joy. What the Viktor Frankl emphasizes, that meaning is very, very central. I can give you an example to hone that importance. Is that first, that no one can take that away from you in terms of war or the natural calamity. That's one. The second is that that in spite of all the challenges that you're going through, just like what Martin Luther King said, always keeping that meaning like your torch or your goal, and you're going that way. Your destination is to love, to serve humanity, to serve, of course, yourself first and then humanity. So having that like guiding star for you, so you're always motivated to get there. And when you do have all these suffering on individual, collective, generational, horizontal, and vicarious levels, the challenge of coping with that, it gets easier because you know you're going to get there. You know that this is your passion and life purpose. And that makes the journey much more smoother and joyous, because you are grounded and moving towards a common value. A lot of times when I ask people for meaning, they mention my family, my husband, my wife, my children, my house, my things. These are all gone in 30 seconds, 40 seconds. So the real true meaning has to be some service, something that is not a material, that is not person, because we are not here to stay. We're here as tourists, and we don't know when our journey ends, as I'm sure you've heard that before. So it's more important to look at what we are contributing. And I often say to my students, my clients, when they're especially around between 50 and 70, when they start whatever meaning they set in, personal meaning, my wife, my kid, my this, and those people travel or move, or they're transformed to another form. So then they are lost. They have to reevaluate their life and create the sense of meaning, because every traumatic situation and also developmental change, anything, birth, death, marriage, unmarriage, buying a house, selling a house, all these situational and developmental experiences can change our meaning in life. So we have to always be mindful. Our research, we have done research in almost 20 countries about meaning and how it impacts levels of post-traumatic stress and anxiety. And it's consistent in all countries, even though they're all 10 different religious backgrounds, different languages, different countries, different continents, regions. Whenever a person has a deep meaning in their life, their level of PTSD is low. They're in the same war zone. They're in the same disaster situation with similar losses. But when they have meaning already set before the calamity, then their level of trauma is low. But when they are seeking and the trauma happens, their level of trauma is high, because then you're in the middle of seeking and you don't have time to process, because seeking takes energy while you are trying to cope with your calamity. So that is not a good combination. So the time is now, whenever you can search. Has everybody read Man's Search for Meaning? Few people. It would definitely be a wonderful, wonderful homework that everyone can read, Man's Search for Meaning. And he has over 30 books, and they have been translated into many languages, and each one is very, very unique. One quick example I wanted to give about that importance of meaning making. We had an intern that came into Meaningful World from Long Island, from a very wealthy neighborhood. And during our debriefing opening, she started sobbing. She said, just last year in my senior year, I went to 17 funerals of my classmates. We were shocked. Half were overdose, half were car accidents, driving fast or irregular, and others were suicide. In fact, today WHO sent a notice to us saying that every 40 seconds, someone is committing suicide. And in fact, the pandemic is not the COVID, it's the isolation and the loneliness that all around the world has been now infesting our community. And I'm so grateful for this community that's bringing together mindful people to come and continue the healing, because the 2-3 years of kind of wrong, I would say wrong recommendation, instead of saying social isolation, they should have insisted physical. I kept putting crosses on every social and putting physical everywhere I went, but it was already kind of a movement that nobody paid attention to. And now we are experiencing the outcome of that with loneliness, and it's affecting dementia, increasing depression, anxiety, suicide, addiction, and a lot of domestic abuse and child abuse. So coming back together is the key, and learning how to strengthen our immune system, because what they were doing is increasing the fear, and the fear shuts down our immune system because you're ready to fight and you're not able to protect yourself. So that's a good formula for disaster. But we had to go through the learning process, and hopefully that we're able to now pass on these wonderful messages to others and to other situations. Now, we as governments and countries, we pay so much economic and energetic value about borders. And you see, borders didn't do anything, neither for COVID nor the fires. We were breathing in New Jersey from my home, Canada's fires. So what are you talking about borders? We have to reshift our way of thinking that borders are useless when there is nothing that you can confine anymore. So we have to open up instead of closing ourselves. So many of us talking about Ukraine war, but how many of you know how many actual wars going on at this time? Can anybody guess? Over 35 active military conflicts going on. And one of them in my Armenia, that Azerbaijan has blockaded since December 2022. It's been 9 months now. 120,000 indigenous Christian Armenians in this place. It's called Artsakh, and is not letting humanitarian aid, food. Now they're gone. They finished all their food. Now they're starving. And there's no solution, it seems, not through UN, not through, because everybody is busy with stopping Russia. And a lot of our American fears of Cold War is surfacing. So everybody's talking about Russia and the Ukraine. Nobody is paying attention to other areas. The solution, so I presented many different, it is a crisis in a way that we're in, hatred, race, discrimination, that we witness as volunteers when we go around the world is really very, very unsettling. And the wars continue. It seems we use the old mentality to communicate or not. There are 35 active military wars at this time is causing tremendous problems with refugees all around. So according to my mentor, Viktor Frankl, the solution is to move our spiritual dimension beyond self-actualization. You know, at that there was a time with we were talking about the pyramid, and the most developed area is self-actualization. But he said the best thing is to transform into self-transcendence. I urge you to reach beyond self and dedicate yourself to a unique mission of life, serving others, serving yourself, of course, first, and finding a person, a group, sharing the love that you have. Yes, we are responsible for our self-care first. I really emphasize that. And but we are responsible for one another. We have moved ourselves from IQ. Remember when we were so obsessed about IQ, everybody had to go through the test, etc. And now, 20 years ago, they found that Goldberg and all that research, it's really EQ, emotional intelligence. Even Harvard Business Review the other day, they sent a research article that the successful CEOs are the ones that are using empathy and compassion and really being interested in the personal life. How is your husband? How is your partner? How is your family? How are your children? That, in fact, increased productivity and joy within the company. So that's whenever, of course, the capitalistic mind, they find more money than they, I mean, for me, it's a healthy thing, empathy, as long as you're using it for a good purpose, go for it. So we have moved beyond IQ to EQ, emotional intelligence. And let us move now to SQ, spiritual and ecological intelligence that is universal, such as Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And it should be taught in every school, starting with kindergartens. I mean, they wait until they're in college, but these are basic life skills that need to be inculcated right from the sandbox and the kindergarten. Only then we will begin to fill and heal the spiritual holes in our souls. And thereby, as the Gaia hypothesis promises, it will also fill and heal the hole in our ozone layer and address some of grave ecological crisis we are experiencing. At this important juncture, I challenge all of us to muster the collective will to empower ourselves upward to a higher spiritual plane and to build social institutions such as this one that may inculcate spiritual intelligence and continue nurturing it in the next generations. Thank you so much.